hotel, by
Nothing
the
but the
airport.
best,
So,
huh?
yeah. So, we may have to do a do-over or something like that, where I can actually do this in my office, because I can't see any of my handouts doing this with all of you. But I figure in the time that we have, I can explain a little bit about what I'm doing. And Wayne, I believe, or yesterday I sent you some of the different PDFs and links and things like that for the participants.
Yes.
So what I'm going to suggest, for the sake of just keeping this casual, also I look kind of like a wreck because the seminar is actually a technique seminar, and there's a lot that we should do with our head and cranium. So like our hair gets all messed up. So it's a little bit of an awkward situation, but it's 2020. It is what it is, right?
That's fine.
So I wanted to thank you for having me, and a question for anybody. So if not, I spoke for your group, gosh, probably 10, 12 years ago. And I guess serendipitously, y'all called me a couple of months ago and asked if I could speak again. So it's not my first time that I've spoken to your organization, and I thank you for having me again. So what the topic is, so I'm shifting around because I'm sitting on my legs and they're falling asleep slowly. So the topic, I guess, that you all are interested in, and correct me if I'm wrong, is about BrainCore Therapy, the neurofeedback work that I do. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And y'all can unmute yourselves if you feel like it, so we keep it casual. I'm going to explain a few concepts and a little bit about my background. I'm not sure if everybody received an email or how you found out what it is that I do. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, a functional medicine practitioner, neurofeedback specialist. I've been in practice for probably over 23 years now here in Atlanta. I really specialize, if I were to summarize it, in how's your body working, meaning your musculoskeletal system in this sense, how's your brain functioning, how's your body chemistry. So I'm really looking at the whole person, a holistic approach. And what I mean by that is in other healthcare specialties, let's say the medical specialty, specialties, you go to an eye doctor for your eyes, you go to a GI doctor for your digestive system, and so forth. And in that paradigm, everything is split up by organs or parts of the body. And there's a time and a place for that. If you were to have, knock on wood that you don't, or a heart attack or whatnot, go to the cardiologist, don't see me. But I'm really looking at finding what the cause of the issues are and working on correcting that by looking at the whole person. So when someone, for instance, has brain fog, sleep issues, and so forth, I'm looking at not only their body chemistry based on lab reports, but I'm also looking at their lifestyle. I'm looking at inflammation, allergies, trauma, hormones, everything, to really find out what's the cause of the problem and how do we organically work on correcting that. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Again, I can only see myself right now in the view that I'm in and 3 people. So I may have to scroll around to see a few more of you. When I started practice back in the late 90s, so many of my patients had other health issues that they had not gotten relief from or help from in other ways. So, so many people on their health forums indicated that they've got anxiety, depression, post-traumatic disorders, ability to focus, brain fog. And I thought, well, what else can I do that is congruent with my way of practicing, in the sense that while there is a time and a place for drugs and surgery, let's be a little more conservative and see what we can do more organically in a more holistic approach. And that's where I came or started doing a lot of reading rather on neurofeedback. Specifically, how do we train the brain to start functioning more optimally? And probably about 15 years ago is when I introduced neurofeedback into my office. The particular brand or system that I use is called BrainCore Therapy. So that's where that, that title comes from. And it's very congruent with my practice. And the types of people that I see, again, anxiety, depression, sleep issues, chronic pain, and so forth. What I'd like you to understand or just recognize is the body is self-healing and self-regulating. Now, in certain cases, we do have bacterial issues or infect correctly for a period of time, but the body's always trying to heal. It's always trying to figure out, how do we get this person back into a state of homeostasis? So simply put, if you're cold, your body will obviously tell you that, but you'll start to shiver. That's a way to warm up the body. If you're thirsty, your body will give you signals to drink something. So that is a type of stress that your brain perceives, and it makes you do something to get back to a state of homeostasis. Drink water, get in a warmer place, whatever the condition may be. When we are in a state of complete, what I call distress, when there's just too much stress going on, we don't heal as well, we don't sleep as well, we don't think as well. And if you imagine driving a car, if any of you have ever driven stick shift or whatnot, you have to shift gears to be able to address the type of road that you're on or what kind of incline you're on or whatnot. And in driving, the car has to go in park, reverse, neutral, or drive. You have to, again, this is very difficult using a phone, so I'm sorry if I'm jiggling around here. But when driving, you have to go drive, park, reverse, neutral. You have to be able to shift gears. And a healthy functioning body should be able to shift gears. And what I mean by that is when it's time to sleep, your body, or your brain in this case, should be able to dial it down, dial your whole system down, so that you're able to fall into a deep and restful and restorative level of sleep. Your body should also be able to wake up so that wake you up so that you're able to function, focus, and go on with your day with optimal focus, energy, and so forth. And your body should, or your brain should, allow you to focus. So if you're, let's say, an Olympic athlete, let's say a figure skater, you should be able to get on that ice, do your routine, be able to focus for those 10 minutes without any type of distractions bothering you. So a healthy nerve system should be able to shift back and forth from, is this a time when I need to focus? Is this a time when I can just be calm and alert? Or is this a time where I need to dial it down and be able to rest and repair? So Joe, I can see you. Joe with a gray beard there. Does that make sense, what I'm saying right now? Or Barbara, I see you with the yellow t-shirt there. Is what I'm saying making sense? We should be able to shift back and forth. Yes?
Yeah. Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, again, I'm like looking at myself here, sitting in a corner, teaching without my hand out. So I want to make sure I'm connecting with all of you. Now, there's something that happens in our lifestyle, in our life, where we get stuck. Has anybody ever been stuck before? If you want, somebody can unmute themselves if they feel like it, where they just can't sleep, or they just can't focus, or they're ruminating about something that happened, and 3 days later, they're still thinking about the situation. Has that ever happened to anybody?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes? Or I see Henry Green, and you've got brown paneling and a black top on. I'm calling on you. Have you ever gotten stuck? And she's looking at me, but she doesn't hear me. Okay. So we get stuck in something, and that's a natural response to whatever we do more of, we get better at. Okay. So if we're an athlete and the more we practice, the better we get at that particular skill. However, the more stressed we are and the more we continue to be stressed, the more our brain gets in a pattern of being stressed. So something may happen, someone cuts you off in traffic, and for days later, you're still thinking about being cut off in traffic. Or if you've got a family member that's really gotten on your last nerve. And again, we've got Thanksgiving coming up, so I don't know how this works in a pandemic, if it's all Zoom Thanksgiving or we actually go to our relatives' houses. But everybody's got somebody probably in their family that just triggers something. And days later, we're still thinking about what that person said or didn't say or what they did do. The more annoyed we get with something, the more that becomes our emotional state, the more our brain gets into a pattern of anytime somebody says something like this, we immediately go into overdrive of anger, aggression, depression, whatever it may be. Does that make sense? So we call this neuroplasticity, meaning the more we do something, the better we get at it. If you think, let's say in the context of polio, the more we practice a physical movement, let's say walking, the better we get at it. So there's and again, y'all can correct me in this, is when there's a difficulty with gait, with walking, with coordination, one possibility is to sit in a wheelchair and not even try, if that's even, unless that's the only option. Another person may have a leg brace for a period of time, but they'll go through some sort of therapy to learn how to become more coordinated, how to integrate their movements. And the more we practice that, the better our movements can become. Agreed? Joe?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. I'm calling on Joe. I see Barbara, so I'm calling on the people that I can see. So when I look at neurofeedback or the BrainCore Therapy, if we have a difficult time sleeping, and chronic insomnia is rampant in this country, it's because our brain's continuously in a pattern of overdrive, because we're thinking and we're constantly processing everything that's going on in the past, or that did go on in the past. We're thinking about what's going on currently. We're anticipating, at least in our belief system, what may happen in the future. So our brains never get a chance to turn off because we're constantly thinking. So in my household, we've got 2 dogs, Margaret and Louie, and they're not wondering or thinking about the milk bone they had this morning, and I doubt they're thinking about whether they're going to have a milk bone tomorrow. They're just living in the present. So animals, at least dogs, have the ability just to stay in the moment. They don't have the filters that we do, where we think about what happened in the past, but we've got our own filter based on our upbringing, our cultural experience, the internet, the news. We have filters. So we're thinking about the past, but we've got our filters thinking about how we interpret the past. We're thinking about what's going on right now, but we have our filters of how we interpret that. And it's the same thing in the future. We're imagining what may happen in the future, but we also have filters based on our personal experiences, the types of people that we spend time with, and other outside influences. So when it comes to stress, our brains are really wired based on our interpretations. And the more we interpret something a certain way, the more that becomes in our brain the go-to pattern. So if we can't fall asleep, we produce a certain brainwave frequency that doesn't allow us to fall asleep easily. If we're having a difficult time concentrating, we're producing a certain brainwave pattern that's prohibitive to focusing for a long period of time. Conversely, the more we practice healthful ways of mental and physical self-care, the more we develop brainwave patterns that are better suited to a balanced and optimal experience in life. And Wayne, with the PDFs or the links to the PDFs, were they emailed to everyone yesterday, or has anybody seen them, or not yet? Nope. Okay. So what I'd ask Wayne to do is, oh, go ahead.
Okay. The PDFs, we uploaded it to the website.
Okay.
Our website.
Got it.
Allison, you're there?
I am here. Just go to the website, wait for the link or the drop down to come up that says InstaNote. Everything for this meeting will be there.
Okay. And, you know, for our intensive purposes also, I wouldn't, you know, given the fact that it took me a little while to get, you know, my laptop to settle down and get my phone as the backup plan here, don't worry about trying to access PDFs or anything. You can always refer to that later on.
I do have.
And by the way, if anybody, okay. If anybody, by the way, I should say this is, my full name is pretty long, Dr. von Fluegge-Chen. So what I'm going to recommend is if anybody wants to have a free 10-minute consult with me, I'm going to give you my office number, which you can also text as well. And if y'all want to write this down, it's 404-261-4848. You can call that number, or you can also text that number. And so 404-261-4848. So, you know, later on or in the next week or two, if you have any questions and you want to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, I'd be happy to do that based on my ability to kind of move patients around. But I did send the PDFs. You can look or download them on your portal there. But one of the PDFs there explains the different brainwave frequencies. And if you think of brain waves, they're measured in hertz, so an electrical current. And the lowest type of brain wave, so the least powerful brain wave that we produce is called delta. The next one is theta. The next highest is alpha. And the next highest is beta. And our brain naturally fluctuates between those four types of brain waves. So when I mentioned driving a car and being in either park, reverse, neutral, or drive, that's what the brain does, is it has to shift between different brainwave frequencies. And as I alluded to, sometimes cars get stuck in a certain gear, or, you know, neutral, park, reverse, drive. Just like the brain, we get stuck as well.
Doctor,
So, yes.
Excuse me. I have that 5-minute video that can be watched on the screen, and your website. You had 3 places to go.
Yeah.
It was those
You don't need to,
PDFs that we.
sure. Yeah. With the video, that's actually Dr. Guy Annunziata. He's one of my teachers in neurofeedback. And the video, it's actually on my website, but it's also on YouTube, of Dr. Annunziata speaking. That explains what BrainCore Therapy is. The other PDFs are links to research about neurofeedback. There are also the PDFs that I show patients about the different brainwave functionalities. So you don't need to look at that right now. Again, this would be so much easier if I were in my office and not crouched on the floor next to a sprinkler or a utility closet. So, you know, make lemons or lemonade out of lemons. But if I'll use my hands here. The delta brain waves, again, those are the lowest frequency. Those are the ones that are predominant when we're sleeping. Okay, when we're in a deep state of sleep, that's the time that our brain starts organizing all the information that we learned, and everything that we're processing emotionally is categorized and organized when we're in a deep state of sleep. So on the days that you don't sleep really well, or the nights that you don't sleep well, you wake up in the morning oftentimes feeling very discombobulated or on edge. Why? Because your brain never got the opportunity to really organize all the information that it needed to. It's kind of like a big hurricane, a big tornado that never got cleaned up. And the next morning you're like, oh my gosh, I've got, you know, debris everywhere. Also, when we're sleeping and we're sleeping in a very deep state, our body's also healing and repairing and growing. So that's why babies, for instance, and teenagers also sleep a lot, is because there's so much going on metabolically, neurologically, in growth and repair. So when we don't get a good night's sleep, what happens? Oftentimes we feel more inflamed the next day, or our body hurts, or our joints feel achy, or our head hurts. We just don't feel like we're on our A game. Why? Because we never got enough of those delta level brain waves, the ones that are really important for restorative health. So the next level up, I'll jump up one level, is the alpha brain waves. Those are predominant when we're in a state of just being calm and we're aware. So if anybody's ever taken a yoga class, for instance, or they've meditated, and you're just in a very calm, peaceful state, you're not asleep, but you're not wide awake in the sense that you're thinking about 101 errands or obligations or things you need to be doing. You're just in a very calm state. So imagine if you're having a nice dinner with someone, or if you're watching a movie at home, or you're reading a book and you're just resting. We produce a lot of those alpha brain waves. And transcendental meditation is a type of medication that's been heavily studied, especially by the Harvard Mind Body Institute, and on a high academic level. And they found that when we're in a state of deep meditation, and you can trade meditation for prayer also, when we're just in a very calm, solid state, that we produce a lot of those alpha brainwave types of patterns, which is what we want. Now, with each step up, we produce more and more brain waves that require or that produce the ability to focus and to use more of our intellectual abilities. So the brain waves that are called beta brain waves are prevalent when we're focusing, when we're really in the zone and we're working really, really hard, or we've got some project that we're completely engrossed in and nothing else matters. Those brain waves called beta are typically starting around the age of 12 or so. And that's why academics become a little bit more rigorous at that point when someone's in about 7th or 8th grade, because we've got the capacity now to focus more for a longer period of time. So a healthy, regulated brain should be able to shift gears from now I'm focusing, I'm in the zone, to now I'm just relaxing, to now I'm falling asleep, it's bedtime. And so our brain should be able to power down, our brain should be able to power up. That's the sign of a healthy, regulated brain. Where I said that we get into patterns is that we get stuck, that sometimes we stay anxious, and that's the go-to pattern of our brain. Anytime something happens that irritates us slightly, all of a sudden we get into this overdrive mode and we can't calm down. Or we've got so much going on that we can't fall asleep. Or we have the inability just to be able to stay calm. Even when we're in traffic, we're either, saying probably words we shouldn't be saying under our breath, or when somebody is, making gestures they probably shouldn't. Their brain's not in a state of just being calm and focused. They're all over the place here or all over the place here. What peak performance requires, whether you're an athlete or whether you're just like us, is the ability to be in a state where when we need to sleep, we can sleep. When we need to focus, we can focus. When we need to be just calm and relaxed, we can do that. What neurofeedback does is actually teach the brain to start doing what it's not good at. So when someone's overly emotional, overly anxious, their ability to get their brain down to a peaceful state is hindered. When someone's depressed, their brainwave patterns down here, they can't get to the state of being just calm and relaxed. So what BrainCore Therapy does using technology is teach the brain to do what it's not good at. When somebody has insomnia, for I've got a lot of patients with sleep issues. They start doing neurofeedback in my office. Probably after about 10 or 12 visits or so, they say, you know what? It's really weird. I'm able to take medication, or they'll have a drink or something before bed, anything to wind down. And they realize, you know what? I really didn't need that glass of wine. I actually felt like I could fall asleep all by myself. Or with kids, especially when they've got issues with learning and with focus, or they're typically very impulsive, and their behavior and their moods, swing back and forth. I get emails from parents and saying, my son's teacher just emailed and said, I don't know what you're doing, but Maxwell's actually focusing more in school. He's raising his hand instead of blurting out the answers, or, putting himself into some kind of agitated state. Whatever it is, keep doing it. So again, we're teaching the brain to start doing more of what it's good at. And again, the term for this is called neuroplasticity. The more you do something, the better you get at it. So the more you practice good manners, the better you get at it, the more that becomes the go-to way of working with people. The more agitated we are and the more we stay agitated, that becomes the go-to pattern of the brain. So we need to start unlearning some of those patterns. And that's really what BrainCore Therapy is. In the handout, one of the PDFs, they explain the different states of what a healthy, regulated brain does, and then what the personality, lifestyle, health issues are concomitant with each brainwave pattern when they're out of balance. A lot of times patients ask me, or the people that come to my office, they'll ask, well, what causes the brainwave patterns to get out of balance? Shouldn't we, if we all have a relatively decent birth process and relatively decent upbringing, shouldn't we be able to shift back and forth and be calm when we're supposed to be, focus when we need to, sleep when we're supposed to be? And the things that disrupt those brainwave patterns are multiple. One would be emotional stress. Second would be physical stress. The third would be chemical stress. Anything that's irritating or overwhelming that central nerve system is going to cause damage to the way the brain responds to external and internal stimuli. So in the healing or holistic health model, it's really about finding the cause of the problem. So if there's toxicity, if there's emotional stress, if there's physical stress, we need to find out what that is and start getting rid of what's irritating the body and start putting more of what the body needs. Just like if you're cooking and you follow a recipe, or you think you follow a recipe to the T, and you realize you put in too much oregano or not enough salt, you have to adjust the spaghetti sauce so that it tastes proper, or tastes right. You have to adjust your body that if your nutrition is highly inflammatory, that'll affect brain function. The more irritated your brain is, the less likely you'll be able to sleep, relax, or focus. Somebody who drinks too much caffeine, they're not going to be able to focus really well, maybe to a certain extent, but then they're in overdrive. Somebody who eats a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of the refined sugar, flour, pasta, or rice, they're going to have more issues with brain fog and focus, because the carbohydrates send a spike in insulin, glucose drops, and we become tired. So diet is critical. Our relationships are critical. If there are people in your life that cause you to be more anxious or more depressed, we really have to look at what type of therapy we might need to be able to handle the relationships in our lives better. If there's, there are other modalities, whether it's through exercise, through finding different types of friendships or relationships that are more nurturing, but it's all the internal and external factors that affect how well the brain's going to work or not work. And in my practice, the chiropractic component is all about how the nervous system affects posture, gait, muscles, discs, so on and so forth, more of the musculoskeletal. The BrainCore Therapy part of the practice is how do we teach the brain to start becoming more normalized, more in pattern, so that every part of your body can work properly. But especially in this case, oftentimes more of the emotional, the sleep, the anxiety, the depression, and so forth is really a big part of my practice. And then from the functional medicine aspect of where I order lab tests to really determine how all the organs, systems, glands are working properly, if they're working properly, analyze all of that, explain in real people language to my clients what their body's actually doing, what it needs, and then putting together most often nutritional protocols to really support brain health and physical well-being. So that's kind of the really, I feel the way healthcare should be, is focusing on health and healing, figuring out what's not working and figuring out what does the body actually need. In the medical approach, again, there's a time and a place for that. Oftentimes it's mitigating a symptom, squelching a symptom, rather than looking at, well, what is the cause of this health concern and what do we need to do to address that? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Y'all can unmute yourself because I feel like I'm talking to myself in the corner here, which I really am. But
Do hormone replacement come into play with you? The
yeah, well,
technical?
yeah. So I, I wish I can be the be all end all to every person's health concerns. I don't get too much into the hormones unless it's, I would say my specialty is more the adrenals. So the fight or flight, the cortisol, all that, which is what keep people pretty tired and wired. I don't get too much into male, female, the hormones associated with reproduction. Twofold. One, because it's out of my scope of practice to prescribe medication. I refer you to a colleague I know who's a medical doctor who has a very integrative practice where he does practice functional medicine as well. When it comes to, for instance, thyroid issues, I don't prescribe thyroid medication. Again, not in my scope of practice, but what I do is oftentimes work on reducing inflammation, which is typically the cause for thyroid dysfunction. Also glucose dysregulation and all the other things really I address with diet, nutrition. If someone, let's say, is low in estrogen or testosterone or whatever the case may be, they need to get in touch with a medical doctor who does prescribe the hormone replacement type therapies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I sort of, I know like every week on my website, for instance, there's a button on the top left that says free phone consult. And especially on weekends and especially late at night, I think people really browse the internet a whole lot. And they click on that button and they fill out a whole health history form. And then on Monday morning, I see what people have written. And it makes me, I'm amazed, but I'm also saddened by how many health issues people have. And they're going around and around and around, and they've taken every kind of medication. They've done everything over the counter. They've been to, dozens of other doctors to no avail. And they're really looking for a solution. And they stumble upon my site. Again, I'm not the be all end all, but they realize like, wow, here's somebody who's willing to explain to me what's going on in real human language, not over their head, not beneath their level of understanding. And for them to be really how do I say it? It's almost like a co-conspirator in their own healing, that we collaborate together and find what the cause of that is, and then work with the body to find a solution. It's not overnight. It's not quick fix. It's not insurance reimbursable, simply because insurance companies will, if they do, cover drug therapies or surgeries, but they're not going to, which is not really their place, is to create or pay for protocols pertaining to wellness and ongoing maintenance care. So people come to me for, like I said, everything from the musculoskeletal to sleep issues, anxiety, depression, PTSD, thyroid, adrenals, weight issues.
Doctor,
Yes.
What about addictions? Alcohol, tobacco, drugs?
Sure. So that's an excellent, thank you for saying this. I studied with a Dr. Jay Holder in Florida for a long time. He's got I think it's a 200 or 300 bed treatment facility in somewhere, I think in Miami, called Exodus, specifically dealing or addressing addictions. And why I studied with him is because in his practice, again, he's a chiropractor, he's a medical doctor, he's got a lot of other degrees. In his practice, he uses neurofeedback. So what I do in my office, also something called auriculotherapy. So it's acupuncture, but using the meridians of the ear, which is something that I was interested in. Nutritional therapy, obviously talk therapy, which is part of, any type of program addressing addictions. And I thought, wow, he uses so many of these modalities. Let me learn more about addictionology, because there's so much that he does that's parallel to what I do. And I have had a lot of patients who've had either addictive personalities, or they have some pretty significant addiction challenges, or they know somebody in their family who's got some, challenges in that area. And again, I don't have a magic wand. I will never say to someone, come to me, I'm going to help, I'm going to cure your addictions. That's not up to me. It's between that person. And if you want me to get a little bit like, how do I put this? I don't want to say woo woo, but just on another level, it's between that person and their soul. That when somebody finally reaches that point where they understand that how they are functioning in life is no longer working. I don't want to say hit bottom, but there's a certain point where logic, intuition, and their soul have to collide at some point for them to decide, you know what, it is time to make some changes. They have to be highly motivated. So there's no machine or system that I have where I'm going to plug somebody in and say, you know what, in 6 visits or less, you will no longer smoke or you will no longer drink. It's got to start with that person on the inside first, where they will say, I will do whatever the bleep it will take for me to get well. I can't do it for them. No outside person can do it for them. They have to do it for themselves. But there are certain protocols that will help with balancing hormones, neurotransmitters, reducing inflammation, teaching the brain to be more calm so that they don't necessarily have that inclination to drink or to overeat or whatever the particular addiction is. According to Jay Holder, he said all, and again, I hope I'm not insulting anybody, but all addictions are the same, or the root cause is the same. It's just the vehicle is different. So one person may be more of a gambler, one person may be an overeater, one person may choose alcohol or other drugs. In my personal opinion, in my studying, I feel that when somebody has an addiction, it's, again, I hope, I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers or not, but when you can't, let's say if I use like alcohol for something, because it's a little easier to explain, that long before somebody used or abused alcohol, that somewhere in their mind, they were not happy either with themselves or the environment around them, whether it's family, work, or something. And when that person will try to either fit in or deal with the situation at hand, and when they get to a point that they can't, the mindset, again, this is my interpretation, is, well, if I can't change other people or my environment to suit what I need, then I'm going to change myself or my perception of how I see others. So if I'm too anxious and I can't make the causes of the anxiety go away, well, then I'll drink, because alcohol is a suppressant, and then I'm not going to feel the pain as much. Or marijuana, it's also a suppressant. So if I've got family members that are causing me a lot of anxiety and I can't change those family members to suit what I need, then I'm just going to change how I perceive them by using a chemical substance. Let's say if somebody's life is such that they're not finding any happiness, any pleasure, it's not interesting, it's not exciting enough, I'm bored, I'm whatnot, then a stimulant, I'm going to take I'm going to snort cocaine, or I'm going to engage in reckless behavior, because that's going to really stimulate those neurons in my mind. So there's the biochemical component of addiction. There's the genetic potential predisposition. There's also, again, using that neuroplasticity term, junk food, processed food is designed to be addictive. The brain wants more of those particular chemicals, and food manufacturers know that. Okay, so what's in Doritos or McDonald's French fries, the chemicals in there are designed to stimulate the brain a certain way that the brain wants more of that. Sugar is a perfect example. So I would say my weakness would probably be sugar. Chunk of cheese, I could care less. If someone gives me some chocolate chip cookies, it was like, ooh, I want more of those. However, when you don't have sugar or refined sugar in your diet, you don't want it as much. Okay, again, neuroplasticity. The more you do something, the more that becomes the pattern. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want. The more alcohol you drink, the more alcohol you want. So there's the biochemical component of that. And when we're able to eliminate certain things that we know are not good for us, let's say, eating sugar, or let's say refined carbohydrates, again, the body's always trying to heal, always trying to repair, and your body's able to get back to a state of homeostasis of like, wow, you know what? I don't need this sugar as much. Now we have to work on a diet, for instance, that's supportive of our health. I follow the more of a ketogenic or low carb diet, because I find when I'm eating refined carbohydrates, I just don't feel well. I don't sleep well. I feel inflamed. When I eat a diet that's got a good quality protein, so lean protein, good fats, and I could do a whole nother lesson on just the nutrition in the brain and inflammation, but coconut oil in particular, those medium chain triglycerides are exactly what the brain need. What they do is they reduce inflammation. They also help boost your immune system and prevent, viral attacks. People who have Alzheimer's, when they start going on more of a high-fat diet, their Alzheimer's symptoms decline, or their Alzheimer's doesn't accelerate further. So we have to look at what do we do to support the brain nutritionally. So let's say with addiction, since you'd asked, is if we're nutritionally not getting what we should be getting, we don't have the building blocks to support proper health and healing. And when somebody's, for instance, not eating a balanced diet, their body's going to crave something. If you're not getting good sources of energy from fat, from protein, and complex carbohydrates, we're going to crave sugar. And the more sugar we eat, the more we want, because it gives us a little bit of a rush. It increases dopamine in our body. So long story short, with neurofeedback and functional medicine, I'm looking at the chemistry of a human being. I'm looking at the brain function objectively with someone. I'm looking at their structure and how do we make sure that nerve system can function optimally. You have to give it rest. You have to give it proper stimulation. You have to exercise, sleep. With diet, we can be eating the most wholesome diet, but if our gut's inflamed, we don't absorb any of that. So basically it's a waste. I would say 70% of my patients who email me all have gut issues. The bloating, burping, belching, distension, diarrhea, constipation. That's all a sign of GI dysfunction. And they call the gut the second brain, because in your gut, you produce a lot of the neurotransmitters, the chemicals that regulate mood, hormones, sleep, and so forth. So, and there's so much to this. And again, I don't want to talk your ears off. I have my seminar that I have to go to in just a minute as well. But again, if I can give you one takeaway, everything is connected to everything. There's a cause and effect to everything. What you eat will affect your physical body, will affect your brain, will affect your mood, will affect your energy, will affect your performance. How you move. If you move or if you don't move, that'll have an effect. If you're sedentary, that will have a direct effect on your brain health. If you're too active, that will also have an effect on your brain health. And you know, your relationships, your emotional health, your spiritual well-being, whatever pathway you choose. When we're surrounded by people that make us laugh, make us think, make us learn, we're changing their resonation on a molecular level. We're resonating at a higher frequency. When we resonate at a higher frequency, we attract different things into our life, different people, different events, different situations. So kind of the power mood, all of a sudden there's no traffic. All of a sudden that food that you ate just tasted even better than when you're in a bad mood. So again, the medical approach is more mechanistic, is you're just pieces. You're the eyes, you're a nose, you're a mouth, you're a shoulder, you're a hip, and you go to different doctors for those different pieces. I'm more of the mindset that true healing is integrating everything. I like to use objective measures. So when I take x-rays in my office for the chiropractic patients, I'm analyzing all of that in absolute detail. With neurofeedback, we do what's called a QEEG. It's a quantitative electroencephalogram. It's what they do in hospitals to assess brain health or brain function. I do that. I want to see exactly what's going on with the brain. With functional medicine, I order out lab tests, whether it's full blood chemistry tests, stool tests, tests to measure inflammation, cardiac function, metabolic function. And I analyze that because I want to be able to explain to a patient in layman's terms, here's actually what's going on. And when we don't feel well, we have to almost, in a way, bless that, because our body's telling us, hey, we need to do something here. I'm crying out for help. Can you help me? You know, let's say with heart disease, the heart and everything else associated with the heart is having a really tough time. So instead of negating the symptom with a medicine, I mean, obviously there's a time and a need for medication, but if we could observe the body and say, well, what are we doing from a nutritional point of view that will either hinder or support heart health? And if we stand back and observe our health and really take a good long look at what we're doing, we find the answer. If it's emotional health and we stand back and really take a good hard look at who is in our life, you know, sometimes we can't choose that, you know, or we can, but, you know, it might not be an appropriate choice to make. But we need to really look at, are there people, conversations, situations that maybe are not healthy for our emotional well-being? And are there ways to maybe not surround ourselves with a certain type of people that are destructive to our emotional health and well-being? And or can we start to reframe how we respond to situations and maybe not get so ticked off at situations that really don't require agitation, anger, and so forth? So, you know, when it comes to healing, it's about our self-responsibility as well. And to say, you know what, I'm not going to negate myself, and I'm going to honor myself. And how I honor myself is taking really good care of myself. And it's not about being perfect, but about making sure that pendulum isn't swinging so far in one direction or the other. Even though my practice is called Balance Atlanta, I don't really think there is balance in life. You know, we're never perfectly still in a perfect state of healing and homeostasis where the pendulum is swinging back and forth. And in healing, we want to make sure that pendulum is not so far over here or so far over here, but to be observers of our mental, physical, social, emotional, intellectual health, and to say, what is it that I need more of? What do I need less of? What do I need right now? Well, right now, what I need to do is I need to uncross my legs, because when I get up and try to stand up, I don't want to break my ankles in the process, okay? What do I need to do? I need to go back to the seminar, but I need to go to the bathroom first. Okay. So we have to be, and why I say this, and on the one hand, I wish I were in my office so I could use my handouts more effectively. But I think it's about, even though the talk is about BrainCore Therapy, we can get super technical about it. And I start off, on that note. But I think it's about calling one on ourselves and say, you know what, am I being a good steward of my body? At this age, none of us, I can't see everybody, but I don't think anybody here is 21. I think we've had a few decades, of wear and tear, and we've got a few miles on our odometer. And I think we should embrace where we are at whatever stage of life that we are at. And that when there is resentment and self-hatred and negative self-talk, it's counterproductive to healing. Does that make sense? That let's say if somebody's overweight, privately they will say to themselves, I'm too fat. I'm a big fat pig. I can't fit into my clothes. Look at me. I'm disgusted by myself. Those types of thoughts produce a certain level of energy. That type of energy does not lead anybody to a state of healing and wellness. If somebody has weight to lose, and I'm not just talking for aesthetics, but I'm talking about for health, true health issues, and let's say the scale says that or their doctor says that, if you put it in the context of I'm a healthy person in the process of becoming more healthy, or I'm in the process of healing, that is more impactful because we embrace where we are and we're focusing on more of what we want. A gymnast does not go on the floor at the Olympics saying, oh my gosh, I suck. I'm a terrible gymnast. I'm going to trip and fall. I don't know how to do parallel bars as well as the person on the Russian team. That gymnast has trained their brain, and this is neuroplasticity, to say, you know what, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to plant that double, whatever, handspring, whatever they do. Does that make sense? So it's the terminology that we use will either destroy us or build us up. And so when I look at, for instance, as people who have, I'm assuming, have had polio, or there's somebody in your family who's had it, one can say, I don't walk well. My gait's terrible. I can't be physically active because I've had X, Y, and Z. And true, that's one way to look at it. Or someone can say, you know what, when I was a child, I had polio. I'm no longer a child, and I'm going to work as much as I can to improve my agility, my mobility, my strength. Now, somebody may not be able to walk 5 miles, but can you walk around the block? Can you do some leg exercises? Can you stretch? Can you, look on YouTube for some yoga stretches that you can do sitting in a chair? So no matter where we are, at whatever stage, age, level, healing, income, zip code, we can always do something that will support our health in a productive way. And to circle back with what I originally said, whatever we do more of, we get better at. So with the brain, whatever we do more of, we get better at. If someone drinks and smokes, the more they do that, the better they're going to get at that. Every time they smell coffee, they want a cigarette. That becomes part of our brain wiring. Conversely, somebody says, you know what, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day to walk the dog. Well, after a week of doing that, guess what? That becomes the pattern. Make sense? So with the neurofeedback or the BrainCore Therapy, I'm addressing objectively with starting the quantitative electroencephalogram, what the brain's actually doing, analyzing that, and then setting up very specific procedures with the technology we have to start training the brain to start doing more of what it's not good at, whether it's not being able to fall asleep, not being able to calm down, not being able to focus. But along with that, I work with someone with nutrition, with lifestyle, with just everything. My clients include everything from celebrities, actors, musicians that you've seen on TV, in the movies. It's kind of funny when I watch a movie, or if I see, if I do watch some TV and I see, one of my patients, I'm like, yep, I've had my hands around that neck, or, it's almost like I claim my territory there, but everything from newborns to pregnant moms to professional athletes, you name it. And I think that the common denominator is healing is something that we're doing all the time, but we can always use somebody else's expertise to help us do it better. The body's natural response is to heal, but we always need to give the body what it needs mentally, physically, spiritually, chemically, what it needs to heal better. And ultimately, I think the purpose of our life is not about surviving, like, oh, wow, I made it to 85. Whew. It's about thriving and to say, wow, you know what? I'm 85 years old and I skydived, or I'm 70 years old and I've been to every country in the world, or I'm 65 and I've got 5 grandchildren. What is the legacy that you want to leave? What is it that you want to do? With my patients, when I start them off, I'm always looking for what I call the hot button. What brought them in? Oh, I've got hip pain. I've got anxiety. I've got indigestion. But what I fish for in a series of questions is what I call their LE, their life effect. What do they really want? Oh, wow. If I didn't have these GI issues, well, then I could actually go out with my friends and eat in restaurants and have a good time and be social. So it's not just the food, it's about being able to congregate with people and feel good. If it's, let's say, a hip or a knee issue, well, then I could work out. Well, if you could work out, what would that do for you? Well, that would be such a stress reliever, or I would be able to lose some weight, or I would be able to get stronger. There's always something that somebody wants. It's not necessarily just get rid of a symptom. It's about something they want in their life that they're not able to obtain in their current state. Make sense? So what I think life is about is to support, or what our responsibility is to support ourselves in our journey, our health, our healing, our process, so that we can have more of what we want in life. Make sense? Because God knows 2020 has been a little bit of a weird year, for everybody. And I don't think our purpose in life is to stay home and watch more of what's on the news. I think our purpose is to figure out how do we adapt to circumstances, but still maintain our enjoyment of life, our physical and mental well-being. I just, in my practice, have a couple of modalities that I use to help people on that path. But ever since I was a kid, my mom was very holistically inclined. I've always had that mindset. It's just professionally, I've turned that into something that allows me to serve a lot of people, not just here in Atlanta, but also globally through the telehealth that I do and some of the other programming that I've created. So I hope that answers, or at least teaches you a little bit more about what it is that I do, or what healing and health is about from my perspective. Again, my email address, if you want it, it's team, TEAM, at balance, BALANCE, Atlanta.com. And that goes straight to my assistant. Office number is 404-261-4848. It's, so Maureen, I say it's team at balance, BALANCE, Atlanta. I think I just saw it pop up, but it looked like part of it was missing.
Say it again. Team at balance.
Balance, BALANCE, Atlanta. And then my website's balanceatlanta.com. So not balanced with an E, balanceatlanta.com. And then just for simplicity's sake, you can call or text my phone number at work. Office number is 404-261-4848. And you can text that number as well.
Dr. Caroline, have you seen anybody post-COVID?
Yeah, I've been practicing. Yes. I've had patients who, not a whole lot, because I'm very strict about everything that we're doing in the office. So I've been open throughout the entire pandemic, with all the CDC safety guidelines and everything in place.
I'm not talking about someone who currently has the virus. I'm talking about
Who's had it. Yeah, I have.
They now test negative, but they have lingering symptoms.
Yes. And the symptoms, as we've all learned from, everything that's been on TV, are very different. And I guess from what they've studied that, based on age, predispositions to, different health issues, that they can manifest in very different ways. So the answer is yes, without going into too many details. I do have to go back to my seminar because it is for CE credits too. So I don't want to blow a 16-hour or how many hours this week? It's like a 20-hour thing between yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I don't want to not get my CE credits for this. But the bottom line is, no matter what somebody has or has not had in life, I address it the same way, lifestyle, nutrition, neurology. So whether somebody has Down syndrome, whether somebody's, has cancer, well, maybe not cancer, I don't want to use that as an example. But no matter what somebody's health condition is, we have to address how do we support the organs, the glands, the brain, the muscles, everything. So, but I also do refer out, because I'm a prudent person, to medical doctors, because there is a need, a time and a place for prescriptions. Again, depending on the situation, I don't think that's the be all end all. I feel, for instance, if someone's taking an antidepressant, that's what they need to do. It's not my job not to tell them to take that. That's not my call at all. However, what I will say to someone is, let's work on the nutrition, the lifestyle factors, everything else to support your health and healing process, so that perhaps down the road there may be a time where you don't feel like you need the antidepressant anymore, or the dosage can be decreased. Make sense?
Yeah.
So it's about supporting the lifestyle, and when our lifestyle is optimal.
The door open. Must not have been shut all the way.
So that's the scoop, but I need to run because I have to go back to my seminar. And again, I had no idea that in my little mini Hyatt hotel here that I wouldn't have a good little nook to sit in, and I didn't know the Wi-Fi connection wouldn't be as good. But hopefully this talk was at least informative, if nothing else, entertaining. The handouts, the links that Wayne's got, and that are, I guess, uploaded onto your group portal, with neurofeedback, a lot of research articles that you've got access to. Neurofeedback's been around for 50 years, but 50 years ago, a calculator took up the size of, or a small room. So technology's finally caught up with the financial ability to afford it, and that's why it's more available now. But again, there's so much on my website on thebalanceatlanta.com, from functional medicine, the chiropractic, my background, what I'm up to. So feel free to take a look at that. And again, if anybody wants to have a consultation sometime, I do like a complimentary 10-minute consult just for kind of a quick question. I also do, again, telehealth, if someone wants a phone or a Zoom consultation, or someone can come into my office. I'm right in Buckhead on Far Road. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You are so welcome. So
Thank
listen,
you.
You're welcome.
Doctor.
Thank you so much. And again, sorry for the disconnect here.
No. Thank you for your time.
And I was trying to hold up an envelope with my phone number of like, call me, so I was trying anything but like smoke signals, Morse code. I'm like, no, I can hear you. I just can't get the Wi-Fi to do its thing.
That information is going to be in our Insta notes with all those downloads that we did for you.
Okay, perfect. And there's so much, like I have so many, like I said, anybody who wants to email, or if you've got my phone number, so text, I have so many resources that I'd be happy to share of things that I've bought, programs I've got, guides I've got, things I've written, way above what I've sent you all, what I sent you, Wayne. So I'd be more than happy to share many of my resources. And if the best way is that I send them over to you, Wayne, when I get a chance this weekend, and you can post those in your website as well.
Perfect. Well,
Okay.
thank you, Doctor, for your time.
You're so
quite
welcome. And one last thing also, let me explain something to you is why I do what I do. I have, if somebody interviewed me for something on television a couple of weeks ago, and she asked me how I define success. And I said, for me, for patients in life, like how, because in our typical way of thinking, especially in this country, success oftentimes is a monetary value. You know, if someone's made this much money, look how successful they are, what a big house they live in. I see success for me personally is when someone comes to me with a problem, whether it's in my practice or in, you know, outside, and no one else has been able to help, and collaboratively we're able to work together. We find a solution, and because of our work together, that person has a more happy, successful, balanced, excellent life. That's what success is for me. From a financial point of view, it's just the currency. It's an exchange of energy. It's just, you know, that's to me what money is. It's just a vehicle. It's a tool. But true success in our life is we're able to live full lives and being able to seek out those people that can help us in those ways so that we can express our full potential. And I look for what is keeping us from living our most perfect life. And if we can find what those situations are or conditions, and we can continuously build on personal growth, personal development, then that truly is what success is. And that's why I'm 53 years old and I'm always on a mission to keep learning more. I choose not to stagnate. Part of it is the creative adventure of it. Part of it is you make a difference in the life for everybody that we touch. And it's that joy, that life, that light that we exude that comes from within. That's what changes the world. You know, it's not more of what's on television and the negativity and he said, she said, who's right, who's this. It's when we start dealing with our own stuff and we start becoming the best versions of ourselves. And we're able to, at a certain point, put less focus on ourselves because we're okay, then we can put more focus on how do we help another human being. Otherwise said, in psychology, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of health, or Maslow was a psychologist who was around, I guess, like 1920s, 30s, 40s or so, you know, or 60s, like decades ago. And that Maslow's hierarchy is basically the bottom part of that pyramid, if you will, is our own biological needs. We need food, shelter, so on and so forth to exist. The higher we go up on that pyramid, the more we're able to focus on intellectual pursuits, spiritual pursuits, and so on and so forth. So if someone's homeless, their first priority is going to be food and shelter. It's not necessarily doing volunteer work for somebody else, right? So if we get health organized in our own bodies, well, then there comes a point where we can start focusing on other pursuits. And when we can focus on those pursuits, then we can focus on other people, not just our own needs. And that's how I feel like we affect change in our world. We start taking care of our own stuff, start healing our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with others, start focusing on being really the best versions of ourselves. And then with that life, that light, that spark, that creativity, then we're able to actually focus on other people and make their lives hopefully more enjoyable and abundant. So that's how we change, I think, our world. Is we got to start in our own souls, ourself first, you know, start in our own front yard, you know, and then we keep successively working to make a positive difference in the lives of other people. Sounds good? All right. Well, listen, enjoy the rest of the day. I have no idea what weather it is. Again, I'm stuck in a hotel here. I think there's a window over there. So again, if you have any questions, shoot me a text with your name, email, and all that. That always helps, so I'll know who you are. And I'd be happy to connect with you. And I'll be certain to send over links to other resources that I'm happy to share, Wayne, sometime during the course of the next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
You are welcome.
Very informative.
Good one, okay? See you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.
Say, everyone, this information that she's referring to is on our site. excuse me, Atlanta Post-Polio.com. And when you're on the home page, you'll see a little orange box come up that says InstaNote. And if you click on that, you'll see all these PDFs that she's referring to. Also, there's a 5-minute video on there that when I watched that yesterday, I was dumbfounded to see how involved this really is and how far they've taken this kind of treatment. I highly encourage you to watch that 5-minute video because it really gets in depth a little more of what they do. So I want to thank all of you for coming and visiting. So we'll get to do it again. Rita, when's the next time here?
October 3rd, and we're going to have Shirley Thomas going to update us on Medicare, and I'm not sure, how much is there. And so you're supposed to come with all your questions and then fill in, as to how you're doing during this virus. So I think there's plenty to talk about.
And
Good.
I just wanted to say something, Wayne, and to Wayne and Allison. If you haven't seen that website, take a look at. You all did a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank Allison. He's the man. I just come up with the harebrained ideas, and he puts it together.
It looks fantastic.
So, well, anyhow, I want to thank you all. And like I said, it's AtlantaPostPolio.com. And if you look for that InstaNote, there's all of that information. And as she sends me some more, we'll get that uploaded also.
Thank you all.
So y'all have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you.
You
Bye-bye.
do awesome jobs. Nice seeing everybody.
Thank you. Belinda, you'll send me that link or that information.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
All right. I want to thank everybody. Good seeing y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye-bye now.